Morning, everybody. How you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I'm Sean Butler. Bugsy Malone's just up in front. This is episode, I don't know, I think it's like 188 or something of Tottenham Walks. I hope you are all happy and healthy, doing the things that you love with the people that you love doing them with. It's a lovely day here. Please do me a favour, guys. Please like the video for me. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. We've just gone over 6,300, which is still crazy growth, even in spite of the fact that I've taken a week off to focus on work since the last video. Apologies about that. Hope you don't mind too much. Sometimes priorities have to take place. And anyway, back to the thing. Please do the notification bell button if you'd like to stay abreast of the freshest content, and also drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's video. And there's a few little topics to get through. I'll start with the first one, which is a couple of news articles popping around about Daniel Levy's trip to Bahrain with Todd Klein and how successful they have been. We all know that they were spotted at the Formula One Grand Prix in Bahrain last month, and reports suggest that the trip was a resounding success for potential future commercial partnerships. While he was there at the Bahrain Grand Prix, he and Todd Klein allegedly have had very progressive and constructive discussions with several blue chip companies on the international stage who might be interested in partnering with Tottenham Hotspur, and including several key members of the Bahrain, I'm not going to say royal family, but people that are attached to the Sovereign Wealth Fund, which is interesting because it obviously leads to the natural next question of whether or not the King Al Khalifa, I think his name is interested potentially in sticking his oar into the Premier League or into football more than they already have. They've only made one venture so far. I looked into it, and it was a few years ago. They invested a minority stake of about 20% in the second team in Paris FC, obviously dwarfed by Paris Saint-Germain. Paris FC are in Ligue 2, Ligue 2, and obviously are not doing anything like as well, but it was more, I think, of a dipping your toe in the water exercise. So Al Khalifa was touted and suggested that he might be interested in buying Liverpool back in the tail end of last year when Liverpool were put up for sale, around the same time that Tottenham were having talks with QIA, which of course is the Qatari outfit that owns Paris Saint-Germain. The difference being between the two is that, first and foremost, the guys who own Paris Saint-Germain own them in the majority, and so any potential investment from anyone who already has a majority stake in another football club that plays in the same competition, or could play in the same competition, i.e. the Champions League or Europa League, will immediately be limited to a minority investment. We've spoken about this ad nauseum on the channel before. There's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't obviously hand over overall control, and it would mean that there would still be a different look and feel to the board, but still have some of the same members of it, no doubt about that. With the idea of Qatar and their sports sovereign wealth fund, rather, they don't have a minority, or they don't have a majority stake in any other club, so they could come in and take over Tottenham. The issue I have with the story, as much as it sounds logical, geographically relevant, timing is relevant, and obviously with all of the things going on at the moment, it would seem very desirable, I guess, to a lot of Tottenham fans. The feasibility of it, I don't think, is quite there. The Qatari, the size of the wealth fund pales in comparison to that of, say, Saudi Arabia or Qatar. I think Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund is about $1 trillion, and Qatar is about 880 billion, at least according to the last known figures that were on Wikipedia. I'll put the sheet up so you can see it for yourself. I don't know how recent that was updated. it might be out of date. But anyway, on that list it says that Bahrain, the group that might be interested in Tottenham, according to some reports, that their sovereign wealth fund is, I say a meager, still a lot of money, $18.8 billion, which isn't anywhere near as much money. Now, there are reports, looking into it further, there are reports that came out just a couple of weeks ago that said that Bahrain's kingdom are looking to increase their sovereign wealth fund by about 100%, so turn it from 18.8, if that number is correct, to about 38 billion, which would be, very interesting, and obviously then leaves a lot more room for a sizable investment, bearing in mind that what we think, not that we know this for sure, but that Daniel Levy and Tottenham are probably looking for, if we're talking in dollars, something around 6 billion, right? 5.5, 6 billion, something stupid like that, in order to be to have their head turned by any potential investor. Would that happen? I don't see it. These sovereign wealth funds are generally used to diversify the income, diversify the revenue streams and the risk of these countries, these sovereign states that predominantly have always relied on oil and gas. And in a world that is entirely moving towards more sustainability and climate conscious, then whilst oil and gas will always be a part of the economy, the global economy, a main part of it for decades to come, they're looking for diversification away so they can continue to protect the future of their country, which is fine. But how much of that do they want to put into one football club? I'm not so sure. It's a lot less risk for Saudi Arabia or Qatar to do it when they're only putting in a fraction of the overall fund into any particular club. For Bahrain to do it with Tottenham, you're looking at, even if it was on the old data, about 30% of their fund, which I just don't think would ever happen. So I'm not convinced there's any real story here, but I thought I'd go through it with you. Let me know your thoughts. Of course, it did pique my curiosity a little bit about what are the other funds that are in that list that are interested in those sorts of investments. Singapore, believe it or not, I think has the highest sovereign wealth fund of any nation. I think it's nearly you'll see it on the list, but it might be 2 trillion. I think China is second. Then you have a lot of states in the kind of like Russia and that kind of middle between like Europe and Asia, like Kazakhstan, those sorts of areas. I'm not sure if there's any real feasibility or overlap in the interests in that region, but certainly in the Middle East, the last remaining state out there that has, I think at the moment, no particular interest in Tottenham, or football generally rather, but has an absolutely huge wealth fund and may be interested, and I've mentioned these guys before, is Brunei. Their wealth fund is in the hundreds of billions, and I don't believe they're currently linked or invested in any particular football club. So maybe that's somewhere that we could see some interest from in the future. As far as Bahrain goes, listen, I think that they're probably happy playing in the kind of smaller size ponds at the moment, rather than taking a giant chunk out of their fund and putting it into a club like Tottenham. But stranger things have happened, we will see. What would be nice though is that if any of those different commercial partnerships were to materialise, was to see if that money would translate, whether from blue chips or from other commercial interests, whether that would translate into football budget, and of course, transfer budget. And of course, the major story out from yesterday was that Tottenham have become the front runners to sign James Maddison in the summer. A player that most Tottenham fans admire and would want, but ultimately have asked for, but seeing as we never got it done in the past, of late have almost given up on it and thought that he would be going to Newcastle. I'll put the tweet up that shows you who verifies this, but they say that what they've heard is that that's not the case and that he'll be moving to Tottenham in the summer, which again is interesting if true. It could be speculation, it could just be clickbaity, but if there's any truth to it, then when did that story emerge? When did that decision or those conversations take place? And If it was a very recent, then once again I'd ask the question, who is having those conversations? Is it Paratici, or is it Levy, or is it somebody else? And why are they focusing on that stuff now when they have far bigger priorities, such as finding a new director of football in the scenario where in 2 weeks' time, on April the 19th, Paratici's appeal is rejected and his conviction upheld? We'll see about that one. Hopefully Daniel Levy has got some fingers in some pies to try and figure out the plan there. And of course the other more important matters for me are, who's our next manager? And look, Stellini was quite honest, I think, when he said in the press conference yesterday that whilst we all want to see something different, and they've been working on different things, ultimately with the injury list the way it is at the moment, they're limited in what they can do and how they can pivot. And I think that whilst that's frustrating and latched onto by certain areas of the fan base as a reason to say should never have sacked Conte, to me, I think that that's completely missing the point. Conte didn't want to be here. He sacked himself. And, at the end of the day, you can't do what you don't have the resources to do. Injuries are a problem at the moment, and I would hope that Tottenham can find a way, if possible, to expedite any of the crucial ones, to get them back before the end of the season. Because we are still in the top 4 race, as doom and gloom as it is around the community right now, and my God, is it so depressing. We are still in the top 4 race. Lots of twists and turns yet to happen. There's still 9 games left. And, Tottenham can get back on track with a victory against Brighton tomorrow. It's going to be a tough one, but, Tottenham are a strange outfit. Away from home, we seem to throw it away. At home, most of the time, we seem to get it done, even though we flatter to deceive. I expect something similar to what we've seen last time with the same old team, unless there's any injuries, which I don't believe there are, that have come back. So we shall see, guys. We shall see. James Maddison, I'd like to see him come into the team if we can get him. But again, it all depends on how we're going to find the 50 million quid to do that. If it's parked under a mattress somewhere, then great, break it out. If it's going to come from the 50 million quid that Daniel Levy promised that he would still take from the escrow account and hasn't yet, from the 150 million, then great. But we still need to find, I guess, at least 2 centre-backs, or at least 1, but ideally 2 very good centre-backs, a goalkeeper and this creative player, minimum in the summer. And then also we have to worry about Harry Kane, and that of course is the never-ending story of will he, won't he sign. Nothing to update you on there. In my mind, I feel like he'll want to know who the next manager is going to be before he makes a decision, and I don't blame him. Guys, that's it from me. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always, bye bye.